Welcome everybody to today's Member Forum meeting. Some safety information first. Just draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure. So please exit by the nearest exit, and the congregation point is at the cathedral. Full details of the questions submitted to Member Forum and the Mayor's written replies were published on the Council's website. Groups have submitted their questions in priority order and are presented rotating around the party groups. Each councillor has a maximum of 2 questions about one topic or 2 separate questions about 2 different topics. Councillors have a maximum of 2 supplementary questions. If a councillor asks 1 question, they have 1 supplementary. If a councillor asks 2 questions, they can ask 1 supplementary question per question asked. Thank you. So, the first question is from Councillor Hume from Labour. Councillor Hume. Is Councillor Hume? Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Rees, and thank you very much for your answer. Just my supplementary question is that I'd like to place on record that both Councillor Renard and myself and the local community really want this space to stay as a community space. And as I said in my written answer, 500 people came to a brilliant community day there just a few weeks ago. And at the very least, we'd like the sale to have some sort of political oversight. It doesn't go to development control. Another piece of green space, Holden Hall Field, was sold very cheaply, we feel, and just approved by an officer. So please, can we have your assurance that no changes will be made to this land without the consent of councillors or yourself or cabinet member, please? Thank you.
Yeah, you can have my assurance that we'll certainly look at all the powers we have to make sure that local councillors are involved in decisions over the future of that piece of land. But obviously I need to check with our monitoring officer as to where we stand with that.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have a further supplementary?
Yes, please, yes. Just to say that, obviously, for people not familiar with the area, these pieces of land may be presented in figures, like the size of the land, its estimated value, and so on. And I just wonder if perhaps Mayor Rees or perhaps Councillor Nicola Beach might be able to come to the site, meet volunteers, and just see the brilliant things that are going on there with the community in terms of growing food and all the community activities that go on there. I think it'd be really great if you were able to come and visit one day. You'd be very welcome.
That'd be great to come. Just get the date in a diary, and I really like what you made about food growing, because we've had a real drive on to support people to be growing food in every ward in the city as well. So yeah, please just reach out to the office and let's try and agree a date.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can we move on to second question, which is from Councillor Townsend?
Thank you for your answer to my first question. It's good to see that the creation of specialist school places are largely on target to the manifesto. Can I ask my follow-up? Yeah, thank you. How many mediation requests from parents or carers have not been engaged with by the authority, leaving the only redress for these parents and carers to be Tier 1 SEN tribunals?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on a number of mediations.
Okay, I thought that might be the case, yeah.
I'll log that and we'll get straight back to you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Do you have another supplementary?
To my second question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm surprised that your answer references Bristol funding when the question is about the decision to veto WECA funding. Which other charities working in Bristol has your administration chosen to veto WECA funding for?
Well, as I said, we have a history, and WECA funding is Bristol funding. We set the combined authority up for well, first off, we didn't set it up just to have another bureaucratic organisation. We set it up to get more standing and more finance, and that was Sajid Javid's commitment to us if we set up a combined authority. So it is our collective monies. But as we said, in the previous answer, we think they have great assets down there. We think that their business plan demonstrates that the building, has potentially very lucrative funding streams, and that they could look to leverage funds against those future streams. We also looked at the range when we're thinking about where we put capital monies out there, We're looking at the range of organisations that work with young people in the city, and we have a number of organisations that are very well positioned to work with some of those marginal young people in the city. I'd also say on CYN, it is one of the most powerfully connected youth organisations in the city, if not the, with some dining clubs that you yourself are quite exercised about as well. So I think they're incredibly well positioned to draw on that resource that they have in their leadership and on their board to have built that business case over the years and build it now in line with the commitment we made to them right at the beginning of this project.
Thank you. Moving on to the first Conservative question, which is Councillor Weston. You have 2 questions.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor, and thank you to the Mayor for his answers. If I may, they're slightly ethereal at the moment when we're talking about SIL and how we can contribute. I suspect that if we fed into Cabinet, decisions are already been made, plans are already established. Would it be possible to get a little more information on, is there a designated officer we can feed ideas to for parks and for high streets, and also a date by which plans can still be taken on board? Because I've no doubt there will be a hard stop at some point. I think we need that time frame and location where to go.
What I'm going to do, Mark, is get the officers to set up a session, if that would be helpful, and invite councillors to that session, anyone who'd like to come. And there'll be a chance for them to explain what's going on, to get feedback from you and establish those, just to be clear on the criteria, but also to be clear on the channels for influencing decisions that are being made.
Okay. And may I, on my second supplementary, my Lord Mayor?
Yep.
The way the question reads, it sounds like plans are already in train. Is that true, or is there still chance to feed in? I just want to clarify.
No, there'll still be a chance to feed in, but clearly people will be thinking now about what it could look like. But those, someone's got to put something on the table, and then people can pull it apart and make their recommendations. But when we get together, when we get the officers to run a session for you all, then you'll have a chance to grapple with some of that early thinking.
Okay, thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Clark, you have 2 questions. Do you have supplementaries?
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Question 1, supplementary. Thank you for your response. I'm disappointed that there's no reference to progress or report on the implementation of the front garden scheme. And with this in mind, I would like to ask that the officers who will be implementing both these planting schemes would work with myself and other interested colleagues to progress this. And in response to the citizenship ceremonies, I would also like to ask officers if they will work with myself and others to find a suitable site for an annual planting scheme. Is this going to be possible?
I think you're at liberty to ask the officers whatever you'd like to ask them. You just have to identify them and drop them an email, surely.
Can I respond? Okay, I'll respond separately outside this meeting about that. Because we were expecting some report or some movement, and when we've asked officers for some movement on the front garden scheme, which is now 6 months old, the motion that came to full council, we have had pushback on it, and we haven't been able to get anything substantive from them. That's why I've said that. Can I move on to question 2?
Well, I mean, I'll just feedback that if you're not, I mean, I would expect you to be able to have your relationship with officers independently of me. That's everyone's elected councillors, they can do that. If you're bumping into a situation where a department isn't responding, listen, to be perfectly right, sometimes I bump into that myself, then let's have a chat and make sure we find out what is or is not happening, and there's a response to that.
Thank you very much indeed, and I'd appreciate, obviously, because I think it's within Kai's portfolio as well. If we could have a conversation about it, or is it Ellie? Sorry, my apologies. Then, yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
Okay, I think there's good answers on that one. Do you have a second supplementary?
I do, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for the responses. It's interesting to be asked a question in response to my question. I always understood that members' forum was designed for members to ask questions, not the other way round. In the same way that the Mayor's press briefings are designed as an opportunity for the media to ask questions. So I'm disappointed that the Mayor appears to be politicising the planning committee, which is a quasi-judicial body. and all councillors sit on this planning committees should vote on planning grounds rather than any party allegiance. Can I ask that the Bristol City Council Planning Department resist the pressure on the green belt, please? Thank you.
Well, first off, I think anyone has a right to ask a question, and then what I can do is answer the question. There's no rule that says I can't answer a question with a question. And actually, I think it's one of the challenges we face. It's been to the impoverishment of Bristol political debate in this chamber and beyond that we do end up with this kind of ping pong politics without actually exposing the premise of a question and all the rest of it. So I don't know where this rule comes from. You can't answer a question with a question. That's the way we teach people to discuss and debate, isn't it? And again, because again, I couldn't quite work out what you were asking there. If it's about the development of brownfield sites, was that what you're getting at here?
What I'm asking is, obviously, we're under pressure in Bristol to deliver more housing.
Yeah.
And obviously, the Greenbelt is under great pressure because of the issues that we have with WECA and not having a plan in place. Then I was just asking that we look at the brownfield sites and rather than actually looking at developing the green belt, which once we lose our green belt in this city, it's gone forever.
But surely this is the debate we've been having for 6 years now, and dare I say, has not been helped by the debate and political opportunism that's happened in this chamber. You're absolutely right. And how many times, and I've spelt it out in this chamber too, we're 465,000 people. We're going to be 550,000 by 2050. We have to solve the housing crisis. If you don't want to sprawl, you do have to look at brownfield sites. And one of the questions you have to face on brownfield sites is, how do you make them more dense? Right? Otherwise, there will be pressure for sprawl. That's just math. And can I just offer a bit of a challenge? That's why, members of your party voted against housing on a brownfield site at Bristol Zoo Gardens. Right? Members of other parties. This is not a heckling. It's not a heckling.
I think we think we need. I mean, can I? Excuse me. Thank you. I think there is a process here. I was letting it go because I do think that it's quite nice to be able to get to have some sort of element of proper discussion in this. I think it's gone far enough. I think you'll have another opportunity to take this further, and I think we need to move on and give other people opportunities.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, to be in the council chamber of Bristol City Council and argue about the presence of politics is a very strange position to end up in, particularly when actually some of the opposition to building homes on brownfield sites, some of the opportunism that's happened around the conversations we tried to have around density have not been based on math, because no one has said, okay, let's not build here, but we're prepared to take the pressure on this piece of land. People are not having that conversation. It's just stuff for the leaflet that says, well, we'll stand with you in opposing housing here, without coming up with a solution. And that does not do the city of Bristol the justice it has. There's been opposition to
Mary's,
housing.
I think we do have to stop it now.
Yeah,
because,
I will. But
maybe what we should have had was more answering the question.
Opposition to housing on Western Harbour as well. We can fit 2,000 homes down there without saying where they would go as an alternative. It's just the physical realities of housing a growing population in a city with a finite surface area.
Okay, thank you very much. We're on to the next question is Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thanks for the response to question 2 in particular. And I'm glad looking at this because I didn't actually have this information from the department, but these now seem very sensible procedures. My concern is that none of these were actually implemented previously when the contract was either issued or being monitored prior to this very dangerous incident. What steps will be taken to try and make certain that management is rather more proactive?
Well, I think it's all been spelled out to you, Gary, in the correspondence you've had back and forth. There's obviously pressure being applied to the contractor. One of the points we've made clear is that that wherever people work within Bristol and do things that have a negative impact on the people of Bristol, particularly when we're contracting them, we want to make sure that that's recorded, on their record. We expect people to do good work and do good work in a good way. So we're continually monitoring the contractors now. Things will happen, and this organisation, we expect it to respond accordingly.
Thank you. Do you have a second supplementary, Gary?
I do, Lord Mayor. This has clearly not been our greatest hour, and we retained these contractors, and there was very bad practice. The residents are still out of pocket. They have still not got their claim settled for 3 written-off vehicles. Can we have, firstly, an apology from this council to the residents, and secondly, some encouragement, should we put it this way, to the contractors to settle their debt to our residents?
We're resolving the situation between our officers and the contractor to make sure that the appropriate actions are taken to make sure that people are not out of pocket and are taken care of, and to make sure that the systems work properly in the future to protect our residents.
Thank you. The next question is a question from Councillor Parsons, landlord licensing. You have 2 questions. Do you have 2 supplementaries?
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. And thank you, Mayor Rees, for your very helpful answers to my questions. I only have 1 supplementary, which is, Mayor Rees, would you like to take the opportunity to describe the work of the One City Living Rent Commission, and in the context of the Council's ambition for Bristol to become a living rent city, and particularly how members of this chamber and citizens and interested parties can get involved in the work of that commission, for example, by offering evidence. Thank you.
Well, first off, as with all the commissions, I don't run them. I've just actually popped into the culture board at the end of the hall, co-chaired by Lynn Barlow, has a hippodrome on it, St George's, Trinity Centre. So the commissions that come together run themselves, and that's the whole principle of the One City approach, that my office, this chamber, is limited in its expertise and its leadership ability. How do we release the talents, of the city? So the commission itself will be made up of people from a range of backgrounds. There'll be renters, landlords, advocacy groups, community groups, equalities reps, student reps. Tom is obviously pulling that together, so I think we'll steal your thunder, Tom. But we're talking today about business as well, who are also talking about the need to have homes for their employees, and unions as well, who will be looking out for the interests, of their members. But in terms of the exact work programme, that will be designed by the commission itself. And in terms of opportunities for people to feed into that, both from within this chamber and the people of Bristol, the commission will design that process as well. So it's up to the Lord Mayor, Tom.
Satisfactory?
Tom, what?
Tom, sorry, I wasn't paying. Did you want to speak?
Just very quickly, I've sent an email a couple of hours ago setting out forming a cross-party working group to feed into the work of the Commission. So obviously do discuss with your colleagues, it's the invites to all parties, about whether you wish to participate and who your party members will be.
Oh, thank you. The next questions are from Councillor Goulandris. Do you have supplementaries?
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. And Marvin, thank you very much for your answers. I'll share those with the residents. No supplementaries.
Excellent. Thank you. We're now on to Liberal Democrat question 2 from Councillor Tim Kent. Do you have supplementaries?
I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for the answer. I thought that was quite informative. I wanted to particularly look at the issue of driver shortage, because I think this is a threat to our public transport system. One area to look at would, of course, be the base rate that drivers are paid. I know the unions recently were pushing for £15 an hour. Do you think perhaps through the One City or through the new enhanced partnership that might be something you could take up? Because obviously if we could get the base rate up, and we could get more drivers in through the door, the affordability element of that comes back in because we've got more buses on the road, but also they're not on there through drivers having to work excessive overtime, because that's becoming an issue for drivers. Is that something you might be able to look at?
I mean, we'll certainly look at it. But I think part of the challenge of drivers isn't just about the pay, it's actually about the availability of drivers. And there are some wider political issues, not least, well, I won't throw that, but there are some wider issues about that, just making sure that that just mean that drivers haven't been available. But I'm sure Tim be happy to connect with you outside of this and connect with Doug and explore some of the the doorways we think there could be to solving that driver shortage. We have done it. We have raised it with the One City approach. Just a few weeks ago, when we had the chief execs of the health service and the police and voluntary sector groups on the call, Doug was sharing about the challenge he faces of that shortage of drivers, which we anticipate will get even harsher when the students come back as well, and some of the drivers are diverted to student routes as well, so it'll bring more pressure to the system. So we're certainly trying to get ahead of that.
Thank you. Councillor Kent, do you have a second supplementary?
Thank you. Yes, I do. So on education now, SEND, so I've got two very different questions put together. Thanks for that answer. That's really good to see that registers coming in, because I think that was an issue of hidden non-attendance. Another issue of hidden non-attendance that was raised recently by a parent in the city was the rates of elective homeschooling. So I don't know if you're aware, but Hartcliffe and Withywood Ward has an elective homeschooling 4 times the rate of Hengrove and Whitchurch Park Ward. That to me seems strange on the face of it. I think it was as many as 60 parents in Hartcliffe, but only 15. And I literally use that because those are 2 wards right next door to each other of similar-ish size. Is this something that perhaps concerns you? And I mean, my concern is that some parents may have given up trying to fight the SEND system, so have taken their children out and have chosen to electively homeschool. I think the question is, are they able then to do that? And is this actually just hidden non-attendance? Thank you.
And now you've raised the numbers in the way you've raised them, it certainly makes me ears perk up. So I think if we have a chat with Asha and we'll just check with the officers whether they've been aware of that, and if they have, or even if they haven't, to find out what is actually going on and what's behind those numbers. If they're legitimate, they're legitimate, but then if they're not, obviously we need to find out whether children are being losing out on education opportunities. But again, happy to talk to you about that and be involved in that.
Thank you. Next questioner is Councillor Plowden. Do you have any supplementaries?
Yes. Thanks for the thank you, my Lord Mayor, and thanks for the answer, which doesn't really answer my question, because we're still seeing a lot of Fix My Street issues not being resolved, coming through as either fixed or no action needed. So the question is more about the mechanism for when you make a commitment, Mayor Rees, to feedback on something. How does that actually happen? Because we haven't had an answer, but one was promised. It was about Fix My Street. I've got an answer.
Well, the feedback...
When we raised this back in November, December time, you said that you would go and investigate and report back. At the moment, we're not seeing a lot of change. We're still seeing a lot of unresolved Fix My Streets. So I was just wondering what mechanism or what method you would use to actually feedback on when you've undertaken to go and solve something.
So are you actually asking, so 6 months or so ago you said Fix My Street wasn't working very well, and we want to know what's been done to make it work better since then? So
well, that was kind of my question, but it was also, I'm using a question here. I had plenty of other questions. I'm using a question to say, when are you going to feedback? Because we've been waiting for some feedback.
So I think Mayor Rees, what he wants to know is in that time, have actions been taken to ameliorate and make Fix My Street better?
Yeah, Fix My Street's in constant review, but if you've had no feedback, I'll ask someone to chase out whatever emails have sent that didn't satisfy you, or to send you a new one.
Okay, thanks. The second one was about road safety, and it's really good to see basically a Vision Zero for road safety in the One City plan. I asked what has been done. I mean, it's great to see it as part of one city plan because the emergency services, the health service, the council, the private sector all have a part to play in road safety. I asked what progress has been made through the one city plan, but I don't seem to have an answer. We've basically got an answer that we don't have a budget anymore for road safety, but doesn't say anything about the one city plan. So I was just wondering, are we missing an opportunity to work with some of our partners to really start to put in a Vision Zero for road safety?
No, well, that's what the one city approach is about. And the best officers we have, you may be aware, don't always just look at budgets as the first port of call. They actually have ability to lead and create and make things happen. But there is budget allocated to road safety. There's education and training budget, 23k, school crossing patrols, 260k, cycle training, 130,000, casualty reduction, 454,000 pounds, including engineering works. And that sits, whether you say that sits on top or within all the works that's going on across our city partners as well, across our public sector partners, our housing developments when we look at the layouts of the places where we live. But the best officers we've managed to retain here and we hold on to with both hands, are the ones that we have working on the front line of this.
Okay, thank you. Moving on now to a question from Councillor Windows. Is Councillor Windows here? No. Sorry, beg your pardon. So then we'll move on to Councillor Sarah Classic. Who is here.
No supplementaries from me.
Okay, that's good. So we're on to the question from Councillor Bennett. Thank you. Do you have supplementaries?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Marvin, for that answer, and sort of really agree with your point about it being such a shame that the government rent and white paper does so little to to address affordability of renting. My question is about the proliferation we've seen of short-term lettings and Airbnbs. There's no proposals in the white paper to give councils more powers to try and tackle this. Is that something Bristol City Council would welcome? Is that something we'd like to lobby the government on?
Yes, on both fronts. I mean, one is we've made the point repeatedly over the last 6 years that the housing market has developed in a way that has kind of outgrown the powers we have as a local authority to manage it and to make sure that we're able to work for the best interests of our citizens, which is not just for their best interest, but actually it's the best interest of the city, in the face of that market. I will actually say, Marley, apart from the work we're doing in general about building homes, landlord licensing, and the rest of it, we are now, with me as co-chair of UK Core Cities, and sorry, not co-chair, I'm the chair, and the chair of the LGA City Regions Board. We're leading a national piece of work that I'm co-chairing with the chief executive of the RSA now, who was the author of Levelling Up, and on Friday, we've convened a number of kind of leads from across the country, including Homes England, the Centre for Cities, and we got 3 questions. What are cities? Let's have a proper understanding of what they are. What do we need them to be able to take on the challenges we've got, nationally and internationally, and how do we get them there? Actually, what we do around our housing stock is one of those, is going to be one of those key areas. What do we need them to be? We need to be inclusive, places where people can live and thrive and all the rest of it. How do we get them there is a mix of the policy, the finance, and then the space to get on and get it done. So housing is going to be one of those critical issues facing UK cities. So it's going to be top of the agenda when we launch this piece of work on Friday.
Thank you, Marvin.
Thank you. Councillor Fodor, your questions? Do you have any supplementaries?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for the responses. My supplementary for question 1 is you've said the council will investigate a framework to cover power generation of traders in streets and parks and so on. I'm glad because that's what I was hoping to hear. But can I have a time scale and any details of how that can be convened? Because I think a lot of people will be interested in knowing that diesel generators won't be used in public places anymore.
Yeah, it's a fair challenge. I'm always asking for timescales, not epochs. When I've asked the question myself, I don't like summer or sometime in the latter half of a year. So let me push back on this particular piece of work and get some firm dates down as to what should happen by when, what the deadlines are. You know, like I say to officers a lot, you know, all the time, we've got to get a deadline down there. If we miss it, we miss it. But we've got to have a date when stuff's going to get done by. So we're happy to take that challenge back.
Thank you. Do you have a second supplementary?
Much. Yeah, just to add that, thank you. I appreciate it might not be precise, but I know it has to involve people, but that would be helpful. In terms of my second question, which is about wood burning and the progress since the motion that I was jointly going to propose or second 2.5 years ago. You've said there's communication campaign planned, but there were a number of other points in that motion that ran out of time on the day, and I would like to know if we can have a response on that. And like Councillor Clark, I'm a bit disappointed I'm being asked the question. I'm not the one running the city. This is a members' forum for members to ask the administration, so that's why I was asking for progress on tackling smoke and pollution.
Well, why don't I do the wood burners first? I'd have to go back through specifically what you wanted response to in the motion. This is an issue we raised right at the beginning. A lot of focus on cars, not much on wood burners. But wood burners are quite fashionable, isn't it, among certain sections? So we can understand people's political reluctance to get into that field, but it is one that we've looked at and we talked to government about. I mean, in terms of being asked questions, first, we went through earlier on that it's perfectly valid to answer a question with a question. That's fine. But we've just come through months of people saying they don't have an opportunity to share their ideas and feed in. You're elected as a councillor. No one puts on their leaflet, I'm going to be the best questioner in the city. You're elected as a person of agency to get stuff done. And actually, for me to ask you, well, what would you like done? What's your idea? What you're thinking is perfectly valid in an adult conversation that we're supposed to be having here. And we did put on the table last time we were in this chamber, Mark talked about the theatre of this place, and the Lord Mayor talked about the poor quality debate we have in here. You know, if we get beyond this, I'm sitting up here supposed to be the font of all knowledge, and you just ask me questions about what you can do about this, what you can do about that, and actually we have a bit more of a discussion, I think we'll be in a better place. But if you want to be seen as a leader, which everyone's been claiming they want to, then you have to be prepared to answer some questions. It seemed like the most unaccountable place in Bristol politics is opposition. Right? You've got opposition, that needs to be questioned too.
Thank you, Marvin.
Lord Mayor, could I add that I asked the question and I co-authored a motion that came from the other side of the house because I wanted something to be done and because I'm involved.
Okay.
So I think it's a bit disingenuous to imply I'm not involved. My colleagues are involved in the Citizen Science Project because they represent that ward.
Okay. Well, what I would say to this is, you know, obviously this is not the first time this has happened in the set of questions today. I mean, if in response, and I read these are not rhetorical questions, these are genuine questions. And the Mayor has just said that he wants this to be a dialogue. And this forum would be much more useful if we could actually have this as a dialogue. So let me say to you here and now, if at the next meeting we get answers that have questions in them, I would happily allow the person to answer those questions in the public forum. I think that would be fair, and I'm sure you think, Mayor, it's the right thing to do. So maybe we just need to change our procedures slightly to make it better, and I'd be very happy to do that, because the questions, you know, are questions that could be answered and perhaps should be answered. I hope I'm not causing... Ooh. Okay, we're on...
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I've got a one-line question. Supplementary to the first one. Good to see a response went in. Supplementary is simply, could we see it, please? It may have been published, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you very much. And supplementary to my second question, which was about the booking system to use the tips. I've had more than one resident in my ward independently come and ask me, is this the first step towards charging people to use tips? No, I don't think it is, but could you set their minds at rest?
Yeah, we're not planning to charge anyone. And I've used the booking system a few times myself now, but it was great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Varney, your questions, do you have some supplementaries?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Jackson, do you have supplementaries to your questions?
I do, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much. Thanks for the answers, Mayor. I'm glad to see the popularity of the new state-of-the-art Hartcliffe Way recycling centre is going so well, and long may that continue. Do we have any stats on what the environmental benefits are, or we're anticipating by opening this site?
I mean, they'll be on many fronts, won't they? Stopping people having to drive across the city, the reuse shop as well. By the way, is something I highly recommend to people, including reused paint, which they've mixed.
I've already bought some.
Oh, you did? I'm going to go and buy some. And electrical goods as well that may otherwise end up in landfill. I think I'll have to go back and find out and ask for some more information on how we calculate the overall benefits. But I think it's the newest. It's fantastic. To use, easy to use. The booking system's worked well. And it brings jobs to South Bristol. It's something that I've promised a long time, and we've got it done. Really proud of everyone that's put work into it over the years. But I'll get some more information on the environmental benefits.
Do you have a second supplementary?
Yeah, I do. But I also recommend anybody with a push bike cycle over there, because you can take your bikes in now, and like a lot of it. Yeah, my second supplementary to the potholes. I'm glad to see there's a reduction in potholes in your answer, although I must admit it doesn't feel like it cycling around Fieldworth. But my supplementary is, when we have these roads after potholes been repaired, surface dressed, the gravel that you use makes it extremely dangerous for cyclists, and especially when it comes, it's been driven on, it puts it to the side of the road where cyclists use. Is there any chance we can get this gravel? I think Bristol Waste go round with their gutter cleaners. Is there any chance we get that done quicker? Because as you can see with my leg, it affected me one day.
You fell off?
I fell off, yeah.
Okay.
My wife said it was my cycling skills, nothing to do with the gravel, but I disagree. But I'm always wrong with that anyway. So
we'll look at that and talk with the highways management team about how they manage that whole process. Yeah, no, we'll pick it up, Chris, and make sure they're aware of that danger, and see if there can be a shortening of the time.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Edwards, do you have supplementary questions?
I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank the Mayor for his answer, and also apologise for asking this question again. But I have been looking at these livable neighbourhood schemes, and what keeps coming back is that parking restrictions are in place there. So I just wanted to know if the pilot scheme is being developed without provision of parking management, if it shows that parking restrictions are needed for it to work effectively, what process would you support to add them in afterwards on that evidence?
We have to wait until we've seen the pilot. But is the argument that we should have parking in there?
I'm just asking if we put it in and it's not working because we didn't put the parking in first, because the only livable neighbourhoods I've been looking at have all had parking restrictions either already was there to begin with, or they were put in at the same time. So I visited Lambeth, we looked at Hackney, the ones in Oxford, they've all had parking restrictions first. So I'm just wondering if we do the pilot and it seems unworkable without parking restrictions, what would you suggest would be the best way to add in to deal with parking issues?
Well, that would be the purpose of the way we do the pilot, wasn't it? To have flexibility in there to move parts around so that it still works. We've said this from the very beginning around the clean air zone. What we don't want to do is just take a model and stick it on a community and it's inappropriate. It worked in some other part of the country, but it doesn't work in the community here in Bristol. The solutions we bring in should work for people, for the physical layout. So we'll have the flexibility within the pilot to make sure that we can take remedial action if it's needed. And you'll know that some of those schemes were brought in and there was a big backlash and it cost more time, it cost more money. You undermine kind of good feeling, and we don't want that. So we will do it sensitively.
So is it more of a maybe than a no, depending on the pilot?
No, it's a commitment to responsiveness, to what we find as going through the pilot.
Okay,
Thank you. Do you have a second supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So we both have the same goal that we want to reduce car ownership. You shared that with me, and vice versa. I don't see the evidence that residence parking zone does entrench car ownership, but do you agree that finding things that have been proven to lower car ownership, so repurposing car parking spaces for parklets and bike hangers and things, do you agree that that is something that's worth pursuing?
I think we should pursue anything that we think makes it possible for people to live without the cars. Remember, I think the aim is not defining the challenge in the right way is really important, isn't it? Right? So I'm not in and of itself against people having cars. Right? What I'm concerned about is the impact that cars have on our health and our quality of life. Right? So the individual ownership of cars is not the target, it's the consequence of that. And then you work back upstream and you say, okay, well, how can we make it possible for people to live without cars? Right? Some of that will be a bit, there'll be an element in which sometimes we take restrictive actions. But what we've tried to do a lot is recognise that sometimes restrictive actions on car ownership actually puts people in precarious situations. Look at some of the responses we've had to the clean air zone from businesses that could get impacted, and that's not what we're aiming to do. So we have to find a very empathetic way through this, not going at the pace of the slowest, but taking people with us, and that's a very delicate act. But we'll look at all those. We'll look at all those solutions. We've tried to get the money to support people. I will finish now. We're trying to get the money to support people through the transition on the clean air zone, which does include money for e-bike trials, money for people to switch to public transport as well. If I just add two other things in there, it's one of the reasons, going back to an earlier question, we've been so focused on developing brownfield sites in the middle of the city, Bristol Zoo, Western Harbour, Temple Quarter, because as we host a growing number of people, we're hosting them in active travel zones where they won't need cars, so we won't build the car infrastructure into so much into those places. And it's one of the reasons why we stay committed to delivering the mass transit system. We work with a public system, transport system we have today, but we plan a more modern mass transit system, including underground, interacts with our buses and active travel for a growing, more densely populated city of the future.
Thank you, Mary. Councillor Eddy, do you have supplementary questions?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Question to actually answer one, please. Does the Mayor think that flying 9,400 miles there and back is a sign of his commitment to reversing climate change?
Is that not the same question? Sorry.
Well, I mean, this is a well-worn thing now. You have to engage with the actual substance of the argument. It was made, which is the question I've asked numerous times. The point made, and I'm sure you're one of the people that have contributed to the 700,000 views of the TED talk I gave, was that actually decarbonising the world's cities is critical to taking on the challenge of climate change, and that the battle against climate change will be won or lost in cities. But the decarbonisation of cities needs a national and an international policy and financial context that supports cities to go through that transition. Decarbonising Bristol is over £10 billion. Across the core cities alone, the work we've done with UK Cities Climate Investment Commission has identified £206 billion worth of decarbonisation opportunities. That's not even counting for the key cities that we have as well. So you need to raise finance, you need the policy support. At the moment, national governments are not delivering that. They're not delivering the finance, they're not delivering the policy support. So if you look at City Leap, for example, one of the responses to Bristol City Leap was that you did this without any national government money. We made it happen in Bristol City Council, and thanks to the officers who who really did so many hard yards on that. So the argument was that if national governments are not going to deliver, we need cities to be at those national and international tables, shaping international finance and international policy. When I went to TED, I was shaping international policy, national finance. And it's actually, and the response to it, both in terms of UK national policy, with this piece of work I mentioned to Marley earlier on, has shown that actually it has had traction at the policy level. And the work we're doing with the UK CCIC, again, shows evidence that who will be there on Friday, that we are unlocking, the vaults of finance that cities need to have access to if they're going to be able to decarbonise. It doesn't happen with a T-shirt and a banner. It happens with project managers and Excel sheets now. So it's actually a question of finance. I'm not going to say that's an argument that you would be in tune with, but that's the argument. That's the argument I've been making.
Do you have a second supplementary?
I do, Lord Mayor. I am frankly astonished by his reply to my second question. Perhaps Kevin Slocum's taking to actually aping Vladimir Putin and rewriting history. Can I ask, will he reverse his ban on the local democracy reporters? Yes or no?
What to say? Was it Stephen Luke said the ultimate, the ultimate power is to try and to define alternatives. When you just say yes or no, you're trying to exercise power. But the world isn't a yes/no world. First off, in terms of the name of democracy, the whole press conference was set up by me. Never been a practice in the council of setting up press conferences like that on a regular basis to give the city's journalists and commentariat easy access. I'm sure you've spent hours poring over my previous press conferences. They're all on YouTube. You can see every press conference. I say you can ask me any question you want, anything. And often, actually, at the end of the press conference, when the journalists have run out of questions, I say, "Do you have any more?" Right. So everyone gets a chance. Secondly, no one's been banned. Right. I didn't invite you to my birthday party, Councillor Eddy. Were you banned? Can I?
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Can we Mayor Rees? I mean, the question is, I suppose, let's quickly get to the answer. Will the local democracy reporter be able to attend future briefings?
No, his point was about ban. There's no ban. I didn't invite you to my birthday party, but I didn't ban you from it. It's up to me. So I run a press conference. It's not statutory. I'm not required to do it. We do it to give journalists easy access to me to ask me whatever they want, and we can invite whoever they want. But there's another issue that I think is really important to take on here. Reach is an advertising platform. Reach have said that they don't have enough staff to send. The LDRs are publicly funded. A private corporation doesn't employ enough people, and so subsidises its staff with publicly funded journalists, which is why the NUJ were opposed to the LDR set up in the first instance. We don't think that's appropriate. We think that any news organisation in the city should properly staff itself at its own cost, not at the public purse. There are other questions about impartiality and competence, but that's for another occasion. So just for clarity, so you've confused us all with this birthday invitation metaphor. So they won't be banned, but will they be invited? No one's banned. The whole thing's been. Honestly, if you want serious answers, you have to take this forum seriously. And I'm trying to get to the bottom to get an answer, and you are undermining that process by your laughter. I think it's been really important, right? The world of public commentary, right? Words matter and create images and meaning. No one's banned. But when I run my press, are they invited? I mean, we can't spend the whole afternoon on this. No, that's the point. They're not invited. And there was an agreement. There was an agreement that they wouldn't be invited before. But I can invite anyone to interview me I want. That doesn't mean I need to invite everyone. Anyone who wants to come to the press conference, we invite the 7 major news outlets to the press conference. That's what we do. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you. We've got a question from Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm interested to find out when the changes to Nelson Street will actually be finalised and delivered, please.
Nelson Street.
Yeah, but I'll have to come back to you with specific dates on that.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. Also, It's a statement about the answer to my second question about the changing the speed limits on Romney Avenue and Sheldon Road. If the Labour administrator had knocked on as many doors as the Green Party had in Lockleys, they would realise that it is a major source of concern for Lockleys residents, and they'd like it fixed. So I would like to emphasise that we do want to actually proceed with the process of changing Romney Avenue and Sheldon Road to 20 miles an hour, please.
No, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't quite get it either.
The question is about the process to turn Romney Avenue and Sheldon Road to 20 miles an hour instead of 30 miles an hour.
Okay, so the previous decision to keep the rest of Romney Avenue 30 mph was made following a consultation during the citywide 20 mile per hour project. There are no plans to review this decision. Discussions have taken place with Councillor Heather Mack on safety concerns on Sheldon Road for a potential bid to the Area Committee 2022.
Thank you.
I think we're moving on to Councillor Gollop now. Councillor Gollop, do you have supplementary questions?
No supplementary, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And then we're on to Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't know whether we'd reach me in time. Thank you for the response, and yes, please to put me in touch with the officer about the current contractor's performance. My first supplementary is just asking if you've got an update on the White Ladies Road footway and drainage scheme. The consultation closed at the start of last June, and we're just waiting to hear back on whether the feedback will be acted upon.
Yeah, I'll send you an update on that.
Thank you. And the second one was just about when you're out walking about and you see blocked drains. Some of them look so blocked up with, you know, grit and stuff. It looks like they're almost supposed to be blocked up. And someone's asked me about that, and I wasn't able to answer them. Are some drains intentionally blocked over, or are they just not been done for a long time?
So, are you saying do we intentionally block some of our drains?
Yeah, I mean that's what it looks like, and I don't know whether that is an intentional thing, or like, you know, do drains get blocked over, or are they just drains that haven't been done for, you know, years and years?
Well, we've got to be careful about the time frames we're looking at. Not years and years, but undoubtedly there'll be a challenge in keeping some of the drains unblocked, particularly if they're near trees and, you know, and other things are, you know, getting on top of them. But no, there's no policy of intentionally blocking drains in Bristol.
Thank you. Councillor Quarterly.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. No supplementaries.
Thank you. And now we're on to Councillor Alexander.
Thank you for replying to me, and I'm glad to hear you're taking it up with other councils. Can you let me know the outcome, please?
I will indeed.
Thank you. No.
No, okay. Okay, now we're on to, oh, no, we've got not the, Councillor Morris isn't here, and we don't have Councillor Hucker. Do we have Councillor Hucker? We do? Councillor Hucker. My apologies.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Marvin, for your answers. No supplementaries.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have finished all the questions. We have maybe a couple of minutes. I think we're here till 5:30, so we have a couple of minutes for statements. The first statement, and reminding everybody that everybody's read the statement, so if you want to speak to the statement. Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
It's the only statement.
On the 15th of this month, this council faces a land tribunal where an agent acting for phone operators is trying to force a 70-foot mast and ancillary services into one of the best loved parks in Bristol. You'll be hearing from the protesters later on. I hope they'll have everyone's support. When the council faces this land tribunal, I think it's our duty to make certain that we all support the council in trying to fight off this threat. So I've circulated a letter around to all groups, and I hope that all groups will sign it and support the council's actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think this brings the member forum section of today's meeting to a close. Thank you all for attending. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right, Lord Mayor.